All right, everybody. Well, thank you for joining us this afternoon. We're going to talk about something that you don't normally hear about at a crypto or Bitcoin conference, and that is how we protect our personal liberties. Out of curiosity, how many people attended Ron Paul's presentation yesterday? Yeah, many of you, right? You know, one of the themes that he had that he really hit hard was this idea of liberty and the protection of liberty, wasn't it? I mean, I heard that loud and clear. Obviously, we're talking about Bitcoin, we're talking about the blockchain, we're talking about financial liberty, which is crucial and paramount for us as a community. But what is our Bitcoin, what is our financial liberty worth if we don't have personal liberty? And if that's a question, and I hope that's a question for a lot of you, how do we protect it? How do we ensure it? How do we own it? Well, we're going to talk about that today. Obviously, we're talking about Bitcoin, we're talking about financial freedom. Bitcoin is financial freedom. Our previous speaker talked about that. Many of the speakers are talking about that. But let me just ask a question. How many people in here believe there's a train wreck of debt coming? Yeah, I'm sorry, thank you. Yeah, everybody, right? So we're headed for a train wreck of debt. Federal Reserve is really the people shoving the coal in, right? I mean, they're just shoving the coal in that locomotive, right? But it's also a century of enslavement. I don't know if you guys saw Mir One's painting of the Monopoly board over there in the art gallery. Yeah, right? With the people, and go check it out in the art gallery, right? This is a century of enslavement that we have been forced into, and it's the Federal Reserve doing it. Yeah, and here's the guys shoveling the coal, right? We're going to get this train back on track, right? Just shovel more coal in it, right? Okay, maybe not. How many people believe we're really headed for a train wreck of freedom? All right, yeah. And this one's really serious. Again, we can have lots of ways to protect our monetary wealth and our monetary liberty, but this idea of freedom, our liberty. Civil asset forfeiture, you guys know what that is? The government confiscates your stuff. They take your stuff, and your stuff is guilty until it's proven innocent. This is crazy stuff. Check it out. Anybody tell the difference between school, prison, and airports these days? Right? I mean, it's all the same, right? How about walking in here? Whatever. All right? Look at this. Right? I mean, freedom, but anybody really care about these guys? So my question to you is, Bitcoin is financial freedom, but Bitcoin is not personal freedom and personal liberty. They are two very different things. You have to take responsibility to protect your personal liberty, because these folks, they're not going to do it. I hope you agree with me. So now we kind of boil it down to this analysis. When there's a train wreck, we have three choices in life. Right? We can enjoy the ride. Right? We can catch the last train out. Unless we're this guy. We're going to do a little exercise. Whatever, yeah, I used to see people laughing, right? No, but seriously, if you wait till the last minute, guess what? You might be that guy or girl. Can everybody stand up? Please, everybody stand up. We're going to do a quick little exercise. Very visual, very powerful. So my question to you all is this. If you believe that we are headed for a train wreck of debt and freedom, and you're 50% sure this will happen, stay standing. 50% sure. All right. 60% sure we're headed for a train wreck. 70% sure. A few people sitting down. All right. Anybody at 75% or more sure we're headed for a train wreck? All right. So those of you who are standing believe there's a train wreck coming. Now the question. Everybody who's still standing that has a residency outside their home country, stay standing. If you have a second residency. 1, 2, 3, 7, working on it. 7, 8. Let's give a round of applause to these folks. Yes, 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 you have done it. You have taken the all-important steps. Thank you, guys. You have taken the all-important steps of protecting your personal liberty by getting a residency outside your home country. Because if you're ahead of the game, act now, right? Act now, because as this Look, this pandemic has absolutely shocked people into the realization that we are in trouble. Our freedoms are being taken away from us. It is stark in our faces today. And as it gets worse, and many of you believe it will get worse, more and more people are going to be piling up to get a second residency. And by the way, a lot of people talk about informal programs. It's called the border run. You go to Costa Rica, and every 90 days you run down to Panama, leave Costa Rica, and you come back in on Monday. Or you go up to Nicaragua and you come back, right? And they restamp your tourist visa. These informal programs work until they don't. If you were in Costa Rica when the pandemic lockdown started in March, you couldn't leave Costa Rica to get a new visa. Your program didn't work anymore. So when the program was stressed, it failed. What you absolutely must have to protect your personal liberty and freedom is a valid, legitimate, legal second residency. That's what works. Rachel, take us through a few of these.
Yep. Hi everyone, my name is Rachel Jensen. I'm from New York originally, live in Belize now, and am a resident of Panama. Got my green card there back in 2017. I think it was 2016, 2017. But the reality and what we've seen in the 25 years we've been in business, but more so over the last year, year and a half, as the pandemic has affected a lot of people, is that people are looking for options. They're looking for their plan B. They're looking for diversification. And as a result, they are owning real estate in another country. There are many countries where if you own real estate, there are ways that you can get your residency or your citizenship through that means. So there are many different countries out there depending on where it is that you want to be. And I just want to quickly note that there's a difference between a residency and a citizenship. Residency is essentially a green card. It gives you access to that country. You can live in that country. All residencies are different. Some are permanent, some are temporary. Some are good for 5 years, some are good for 1 year. So it just depends on where it is that you want to be and what residency program works best for you. A citizenship is essentially when you get a passport to another country. So that's the document that you're allowed to travel on back and forth. I know there have been a couple of folks who've talked about renouncing their passports or renouncing their citizenships in their home country to get another one. That's up to you, that's your decision. But in order to renounce your passport, you do have to have citizenship in another country. So there are a handful of programs out there. And typically when it comes to citizenship or a passport, it tends to be time or money. And when I say time, I mean that it typically starts with a residency program, and over time, it can lead to a citizenship, lead to that passport. Typically, 5 years is the minimum, but it just depends entirely on the country that you're in. Other times I say money, and money because there's a substantial investment into the country in order to get that citizenship. So Malta, for example, about 3 million euro. You can get your citizenship in Bulgaria. People may be looking at Bulgaria because it's part of the EU. This typically starts at about 1 million euro. Also Portugal. Portugal, it has the golden visa. It's about a 350,000 euro investment into a project there. After 5 years, you are able to get your citizenship. Again, an attractive one because it is part of the EU. Grenada, a very popular one in the Caribbean. And the ones in the Caribbean tend to start a little bit less, about 200, 300,000, depending on the specific program that you're looking at. Again, with the resident or the citizenships there in the Caribbean, just depends on where you're looking, but usually they start about 200,000, 300,000 and then work their way up. Dominica, about 200,000 that you have to invest in the country in order to get your citizenship. And there typically are government programs that you have to participate in. You can't just go into these countries and say, oh, this looks great, I'll invest in this one. It is part of a specific program. Belize, for example, you can start with your residency. You start with an investor residency, $250,000 or more invested in the country. And then from there, after 5 years, you can apply for your citizenship in the country and get that passport. And then Panama. Panama is one that I am going to talk to you about a little bit more specifically because has anybody been following the Panama Friendly Nations visa? Yeah, so I had a couple of people come up to us at the booth and talk specifically about Panama. So one of the easiest residencies in the world right now. So this is essentially your green card into the country, which could lead to citizenship after 5 years. But this residency is one of the easiest, most affordable, and just best residency out there. And the reason that I say that is because with a lot of residencies, you have to spend time in the country to maintain it. Usually it's about 6 months out of the year they want you to become a tax-paying resident. in Panama, specifically with this residency, you only have to be there 1 day every 6 years in order to maintain it. 1 day every 6 years in order to maintain this residency. In addition, there are a lot of residencies that are temporary. So with temporary residencies, you need to reapply for it, or it's only good for a certain period of time. With this specific residency, it's permanent. You have it for life. You don't need to keep going to the country and reapplying. So about, I guess back 2013, 7-8 years ago, when this Friendly Nations visa came out, we started a program that allowed people to obtain their residency through ownership of teak farmland. You own the farmland, you get title to it, it's yours. You receive the profits from the payouts, and then with that, you receive your freedom package. So we do accept crypto. That's why we're here. We accept crypto. People have been taking advantage of it, Bitcoin specifically. If you're looking for something larger, I know there are people who are looking for ownership of real estate, maybe planning to come down, spend time there, or just park some financial assets there in the country. You are able to do that. If you haven't stopped by our booth yet, please make sure you do so. We have a whole section about tiny homes. This is specifically in Panama. So if you're interested in ownership of tiny homes, there are different residency programs in different countries, but this is a means for you to get that residency. Now, the reason I want to mention that Friendly Nations visa specifically is because there's a huge change coming. So right now, one of the ways that you can get that Friendly Nations visa is through land ownership valued at $10,000 or more. Land ownership valued at $10,000 or more. Come August, that's increasing to $200,000. Yes, it's a significant change. I'm not really too surprised because it's one of the easiest residencies and most affordable. It's been around since 2013. So I'm not surprised that a change was coming, but it just happened really quite quickly. They just announced the change about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. So we've been having clients who are rushing to get down to Panama. You do have to physically get down to Panama, put your application in, and then once your application is in, you'll be grandfathered into the residency program. Even if you don't actually get that residency card until after August, you're still grandfathered in because you've applied for it before that August timeline. So just wanted to give you all that update. In addition to that, like we have a variety of real estate as real estate developers within the region. Here's a beautiful mansion there if anyone is looking for a beautiful 10,000 square foot home in Panama City. I mentioned to you the tiny homes. The tiny homes have been a vehicle for a handful of our other owners to get residencies in these countries. So for example, Panama, we just talked about that right now is an investment of $10,000 or more. That's going up to $200,000 or more. Nicaragua, right there on the Pacific, those tiny homes are starting at about 95,000, so about 3 Bitcoin, a little bit less. And then in Nicaragua, you can get your residency with an investment of $30,000 or more. And then in Belize, we mentioned $250,000 or more. So as a company, we've been around for about 25 years at this point. Our primary goal when we first started was to provide folks with real estate options throughout Latin America. Over time, as we saw this huge need for people who are looking for residencies, Plan B, having ease of spending time in a country, we've started to help with the residency and citizenship sides. I think we've helped over 1,000 people at this point, plus family members and dependents get their residencies successfully and have that freedom. So as we mentioned, Bitcoin is accepted for all of the opportunities. We do have financing available as well. So we have financing up to 80% for those of you who are interested in the cash side of it. And then we do have options for accredited investors if that applies to any of you. So with the ownership of the teak farmland in Panama, we paired that up with the residency. You're able to add dependents. I didn't mention this before, but this is good to note, is that you're able to add your spouse, your parents, your children up to 18, or 18 to 25 if they're enrolled in college. So you can get the whole family residency, and they don't all need to come down on this trip to get started. Have that primary applicant get started, and dependents can be added later. So just something to bear in mind. It's been one of the easiest programs. I did it personally in 2016-17. We've had, like I mentioned, thousands of people since then who've done it, and it's been pretty exciting. So what I'm going to recommend, if you're interested in this, I see we have 43 seconds left, and I want to be respectful. Tristan, your name is? Tristan back here, but do send us a message, bitcoin@ecidevelopment.com, bitcoin@ecidevelopment.com. We do also have a booth towards the back of the exhibition hall. Come talk to us if this is something that is of interest to you, and then Mike and I will be out here to answer questions too and whatnot. I see. Yes. That is so. So tax implications, it's a big question. It depends where in the world you're living, where your citizenship is of. I'm going to talk to you specifically about the teak ownership for a second. With the teak ownership, because it's a certified reforested property, you don't have income tax in Panama on your harvest yield, and there's no property tax. And that's a much bigger question than we have time for, which just ended. But I can talk to you a little bit more specifically about that and also introduce you to an accountant who's familiar with all this and understands the implications.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.